Hi everyone, welcome to episode 26 of Fridays with FEMA. I'm Ashish.
I'm Janisha.
So, I think continuing from third party payments last time under the import and export regulations, today let's talk about another concept, right, which is called the merchanting trade, the MTT in short.
Under
Uh,
the under
yeah,
the
under the
import
import
export
export regulations,
regulations.
like a continuation of that. So, I think, Janisha, what is MTT and how does it work?
So, in certain situations where there is a trader in India who is importing certain goods from country X and exporting it to country Y, right? So, probably what might be convenient is that the goods are directly shipped from country X to country Y,
Right.
right? And of course the trader in India has to pay through the person in country X for the import leg, and has to receive payments from the from the buyer in country Y
Right.
for the export leg, right? But the goods need not come into India and then be sent, right? So it's a more convenient way of trading and doing the transaction, and this is what is called as merchanting trade transactions.
Sure.
This is in particular permitted under the import master directions. So it's very much permitted, of course, but certain conditionalities, right?
Sure. So basically, if there is a good that party X and party Y who are offshore, they want it, and X is making it and Y wants it, and the Indian party, as the intermediary, if I may call him, is basically making that good available to party Y directly through party X without it really coming into India.
That's right.
That's basically what I would
That's right.
summarize as merchanting trade.
Absolutely. One of the important conditions is, while of course the Indian party acts like an intermediary, but it has to be a genuine trader. It can't just be a financial intermediary trying to make a surplus profit. So if I'm a trader who's into the garments business, I can do this. But if I'm just doing a speculation here, I can't really be a financial intermediary in that sense. So that's
Yeah.
one of the conditions, in fact, that is that parties need to keep in mind when they're looking for a merchanting
Yeah, so
trade
it's
transaction.
as if virtually the goods have come to the trader, and
Correct,
then
correct,
virtually the goods have
correct,
moved from India
correct,
back to the
correct.
recipient.
So both
And
there is an import and an export
correct, and
leg for
which
the
is why
same
one of the
transaction.
conditions also is that the Indian
Party.
party would need to have an import exporter code, and
Correct.
like you said, should be a trader in ordinary course.
Correct. Absolutely. And all your conditions which are applicable should be applicable typically to the import leg and as well as the export leg, except for, of course, your bill of entry or export declaration form. Other than that, you have to comply with everything, including what Ashish you just said, the IEC code. So
Mm-hmm.
you're required to get an IEC code even for that. One other important point here is the goods, they should be permitted by the foreign trade policy in India. Just because it's not entering the borders doesn't mean
Yeah,
you can ship something, and you can enter into merchanting trade transaction for
both such
something
goods. Yeah,
which is not permitted by the foreign trade policy. So parties need to ensure that their products that are in question are permitted and are free to trade under the foreign trade policy. They're not under the sites or the SCOMET list. So all of that is very important to be taken
taken into
care of,
account. Yeah,
right, Ashish? Ashish, one interesting point is that the amounts need to be that the Indian party is going to receive. It has to be in freely convertible currency, right? So I think that's also important to be kept in mind when parties are determining what is the currency in which they're doing the trade,
correct.
right?
I
Um,
think the safest is to do it in USD.
Dollars,
Yeah,
yeah,
where
absolutely.
both parties are paying, or and the Indian party is receiving and paying both in USD, and the whole transaction is taking place in USD, which would be considered to be
Freely
freely
convertible,
convertible. Yeah.
absolutely. I think that brings us to the timeline for doing this transaction. The entire transaction, both the import leg as well as the export leg, needs to be completed within
9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
With I think the
Uh,
import leg being completed within a period of six
6 months.
months.
Yeah.
Earlier it was 4, now it's become 6 months.
Correct. That's right.
I think we've seen a situation where this import leg was delayed in a
Correct.
merchanting trade transaction, right?
Yeah, and then we had to go to RBI and take approval
Yeah,
for allowing the delay to be condoned,
correct.
and then allowing the payment to come to India basically even after the delay happened. Uh, I think additionally one other point that I want to make is that because see, one part is the goods not coming into India and then it being transferred from party X to party Y directly. But let's also talk about the money aspects apart from the freely exchangeable, freely transferable currency. See, The larger idea, the way I think about it, is that there is some sort of offset also that can be allowed, right? So if you've received money for the export leg, right, then you can actually keep that money in a separate account with your AD bank, and
Use
for
it.
and yeah, and whenever you have to make the payment for that import leg, the money from the export, which is kept in a separate bank account, can actually be used to make payment for the import leg. This
Yeah.
is actually specifically permitted under the regulations, and something that you can definitely take make use of at the relevant
Correct.
time.
Correct. And just to add on to it, another interesting condition is it's important that the trader makes profit. So your receipts have to be greater than your
Yeah.
expense. I
Yes.
think that's a very specific condition out there. So if your trade does not result in a profit, probably you're not in compliance with the condition, and again you'll require approval. So I think that's another important
Yeah, I think again with
factor.
the overall aspect with respect to uh, Indian India receiving its exchange due exchange control exchange currency, right? Because if you are suddenly getting less money for your exports but more money for the import leg, then and you have to pay more money for the import leg, which means you have to go out of pocket. I think then that's a loss from an Indian
Hmm.
exchange
Right.
currency perspective also, right?
Correct. And I believe, see, because this is also not crossing the borders, right? So there is, I mean, if I had just done an import and actually then exported it, probably this nobody would have seen whether I'm making a profit or not. So probably that could also be a reason why there is this particular condition. Other than that, I think the bank is going to ask for more documents. There is wide discretion on the bank to be satisfied on the bona fides of the transaction, including all the KYC checks.
Correct.
So we've seen in the past that a significant amount of checklist and data is required by the bank in order to process this transaction as well. So yeah, I think these are some of the key aspects for a merchanting trade.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought we thought that this would be. I mean, a lot of people are not aware about this concept, and hence the idea of today's episode was to throw some light on it. With this, I think we can end this session, and yeah, see you guys next Friday.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you.